updating the City of Lake Geneva fee schedule as it relates to parking fees and beach pass fees. These were not combined at FLR, they were voted on separately. What was voted on for parking fees was to go $3 in the premier areas, which would be expanded to include the south side of Main Street west of Cook. And the beach pass fees were going to be $10 for adults, $5 for children, and the reason behind that was to avoid having to have so many dollar bills.
Just to clarify, that's the beach ticket, not the beach pass that a resident would buy. The beach passes that a resident would buy would remain the same.
It was also mentioned to try to give it free to the residents, but they've already paid this year, so we got to do that next year.
We can talk about it next year. I'll make a motion to approve, and then I have a question.
Was there a second?
Yeah.
I got it.
I will second for discussion.
All right, Alderman Shelby?
I have a problem with the parking rate, obviously. I know the city is trying to make up lost revenue, but we're really slamming it to the downtown businesses, and we're also slamming it to our residents and our tourists. The parking has gone up over the last 20 years exorbitantly. It does not reflect the standard of living increase. There's actually no reason to justify how our parking has gone up over the last 20 years, other than to say that we're just trying to take advantage of people, and we're getting it where we think we can take it from. The store owners have suffered a lot. The restaurants have suffered a lot through COVID. I know the city did too. But the stores can't just go out and randomly mark up their merchandise to make up for those losses. They have to try to figure out how to make ends meet. And I know that their business is picking up right now, but that may not continue because our economy may suffer another hit. The locals also, I mean, I know that it's always been argued that one of the reasons you want to increase parking is to get people moving. That's not what the downtown businesses want. They want people to come and spend a day here. They want them to think to themselves, okay, I'll shop a few stores, I'll have lunch, I'll shop a little more, then I'll grab some dinner. You don't want people moving. You want them staying here all day, spending their money in town. Increasing the parking does not do that. And you're also hitting the locals because we only get a 2-hour free pass. So if you come downtown, get your hair done, you already exhaust those 2 free hours. Then you got to plug the meter if you want to spend some time in town, which we're constantly saying our locals are not supporting our downtown. Maybe it's because the parking is too doggone high. We are higher than almost every other city, even bigger cities. It's just ridiculous. And to tack this on at this time is irresponsible. And it just really flies in the face of these poor business owners that have really, really suffered.
Alderman Fessenmeyer.
I'd like to make a motion to split the question into 2 separate parts so that we can discuss and vote on each separately.
I'll amend the motion to split it into 2 questions.
Then I'll second that.
Well, I made a motion to approve it, so if we want to split it, we have to have another motion, right? Or an amended motion?
I just did, but I can second it too, it doesn't matter.
All right, so you're making the motion to split the beach pass and parking issue into 2 separate items.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll second
Yes.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
that.
Aye. Opposed? All right, so we're on parking. Probably should stay on that subject. Somebody else had their hand up. Alderman Halverson.
Yes, I propose that we do 2 hours across the city. We had, at the beginning of this process, we had indicated that the 3 and 1 was equal to the 2 hours across the city, including the 900 block of Main, which wasn't before. I don't know why it wasn't before, but it wasn't. Extending the parking for 3 hours for locals would provide a little more time for them. 8 free parking spots for the library, whatever other people want. I think Emily can speak to that more. most of the information we get, most of the revenue we get from the county is based on usage, and clearly, increasing the charge will hurt the library. And I think this is an opportunity to solve a long-term problem that the library has had. So my feeling is that the $2 will create virtually the same income that we're looking for. Plus it will be a relief for the downtown. The parking, free parking for the library will solve a long-term problem. Extending the 3 hours will allow the locals to, with a pass, have parking so that the 3 and 1 isn't justified. And I would entertain that we might also consider $3 per regulate between Barriques and Speedos, which would also increase the revenue.
I'm sorry, would you repeat the last part of that?
$3 for between Barrique and Speedos. I don't think those spots have a major impact on the downtown shopping.
So you're suggesting Wrigley Drive, basically?
Not the whole Wrigley Drive, just between Barriques and Speedos.
And as far as the library is concerned, do those spots have a time limit on them?
I would look to Emily for any suggestions on that.
I think in her letter, she suggested a half hour. I think that's what I remember her saying in her letter.
Alderman Hedlund?
Yeah, as far as the library, and I read that letter, Emily, I thought it was very well written. I really think we should probably give the first 5 stalls down there to the library. I think 10 would be pushing it. There's 91 stalls on that road. But I think 5, I don't know, how many people you letting in the library now at a time?
20.
Okay, but 5 parking stalls, the first 5 there, and just make those 30-minute library-only parking, or I don't know how long people typically stay at the library, maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever.
They stay hours.
Oh, yeah, you do, I don't. But I would think that would be a very fair compromise as far as, we don't want to chop the legs out from under the library with funding, and, and as far as John's suggestion about now we're going to have a $3 zone, a $2 zone, and a $1 zone. I don't think that makes a lot of sense.
I'll drop the Wrigley idea.
And as far as the 3 and 1, I don't want to cause any problems for the businesses downtown. The residents I do worry about. That's who elected me. I live here. That's who we are supposed to support. We're not supposed to support the tourists from Chicago. And if you drive down Wrigley Drive or not Wrigley Drive, Main Street like I did about 20 times last Saturday, 9 out of 10 of those cars parked on Main Street have Illinois license plates. I don't. If you make it $2 all over town, now you're hurting the locals. Now you're hurting the people that aren't afraid to walk a half a block to save $1 or $2 an hour in parking. It just makes more sense.
Do we have a cruising ordinance that Alderman Hedlund is violating?
I was
Driving down
working.
Main Street 20 times?
Alderman
Just
Halverson?
wondering.
The issue is that I think the 3 hours for the changing from 2 to 3 hours for the locals would
I like
solve
that.
most of that problem. I haven't spent more than 2 hours downtown. Of course, I don't have my hair done, but I don't know what, and what's the worst that local ends up paying another $2 for another 2 hours?
So,
Charlene?
is there an element in your proposal regarding the time frame for charging parking?
No. Charlene, can I make a comment too?
Strabby?
I don't want you to forget that a lot of the business owners are local residents and taxpayers, as well as the people that are working at those establishments. They're also local residents paying taxes, and they're also voting on their elected officials. So, I just think we need to really be cognizant of the fact that these people have really, really suffered. Those workers at the restaurants were okay for the last couple of months. The business owners weren't able to open. You can't sell product when you aren't open, and most of the landlords weren't very understanding, so they were still paying their extremely high rents.
Alderman Flower.
Is anyone interested in the proposal about extending hours? I know that there was something in our April packet, from our April 27th packet for council, and it showed that there were specific locations that had high peak at different hours than what we typically have, in particular Starbucks in the morning from like 5 a.m. on, Oak Fire until close to 10 p.m. The Simple, early mornings before 9 o'clock. I know that they had talked about Gage Marine, and the boats are passed, I believe. And Seth, maybe you can remind me about the Gage boat timing. I don't seem to have that one handy. But I thought that their last tour was past 7. So it's something to think about as well, that maybe that is something we should be considering. Plus, members of our bid had suggested that that might be a good compromise.
It would definitely be for extending the hours to parking.
Oh, I see it. Sorry, I just found it. Sorry, it was in the packet. I was one more page down. Gage has their last tour. It goes until 9 o'clock on Saturdays and until 8:30 on Sundays.
Alderman Halverson.
Well, we have a question, I don't mind investigating that, but I think we have a question of whether or not we would enforce those periods. And if we aren't, is that a lessening of intent to pay? And if we are, we'll get a pay wages.
Alderman Flower.
I would suggest that we don't speak about how the operations of that plan to be implemented, and we would leave that up to our parking manager to make sure that the threat of enforcement is at all hours of when we are open, and he can choose how and when to staff it.
Well said.
Alderman Howell, and then Alderman Dunn.
All right, what I'm hearing, I'm gonna try to make an amendment to the motion we have on the floor, which motion I think we have on the floor is 3 and 1. I would amend that to be $2 across the board, with 5 parking spaces given to the library at 30 minutes each, and 3 hours free parking for residents.
I second that.
All right, we have a motion by Alderman Howell and a second by Alderman Halverson. Is there any other discussion? Alderman Dunn, I think you had your hand up.
I was going to say largely what Alderman Howell just said. The one thing maybe I'm not sure you addressed was extending the hours or not. It would mean more labor. It might even make it a little harder to hire parking attendants. But the other thing to consider is we've loaned the Geneva Theater a lot of money to have a theater, and they are now in competition with the Imagine Theater, just in the town of Lyons, where the parking is free. And by extending hours to 9 o'clock, that adds maybe $4 to the price of a movie ticket at the Geneva Theater downtown. And if they don't make it, I do believe we own a movie theater because we loaned them the money.
Alderman Fessenmeyer, did you have your hand up?
I did, and I'm just wondering, maybe the parking manager can shed some light on, we have purchased these expensive parking kiosks. At what point do we use the data to not keep charging the same price across the board?
I'll just try to speak in some generalities at first. Dynamic pricing structures, so changing price structures, in theory, encourage movement. And we think about it kind of like the restaurant industry thinks about flipping their tables. And so if you maximize turnover, you maximize revenue in terms of parking. And so by creating changing or dynamic pricing models, you will produce more revenue out of the same number of spots, same number of hours. But it's more difficult to enforce, but that's just part of the game. So if the question is, when do we start using data to make those decisions? I would say now. But that's got to be counterbalanced with the desires of the constituents and the community as a whole. Clearly.
Alderman Halverson.
I think there's a number of issues that Seth can look into. The extended hours, I believe our new meters will also allow us, if we wanted to have year-round parking. The old ones couldn't handle the lack of light in the winter. And I'd like Seth to investigate what other communities are doing. I think those things can be investigated after we deal with this summer.
I see you, Ken, but I'm gonna call on Alderman Strouby first.
Thank you. And Seth, I'm not arguing your point. In a restaurant, definitely turning tables increases revenue. The problem with the summer in Lake Geneva is if you leave your parking spot, you can't find a new one if you want to stay longer than a few hours. So,
I get it.
It's a whole different situation. I mean, I understand what you're saying if we had enough parking spots to go around, but we simply don't.
Understood.
Alderman Howell?
I left the hours off of my motion on purpose. I think we're doing enough changes to swallow as it is right now.
Don't you still have to say keep the hours the same then, or something?
No.
Okay.
All right. I believe we do have a motion. Nan, I'm gonna ask you.
Mayor,
I'm gonna have to ask Alderman Howell if he can repeat his
All right, just one
motion.
moment. Alderman Dunn?
one other thing, somebody pointed out to me, and maybe Seth could clear this up. Now, we do the parking by license plate, and if we have two different zones, like a dollar zone and a $2 or $3 zone, somebody can park in the dollar zone, but move if they can find a place closer, and only pay $1 and be parked in front of Popeyes or something. And do we have any way of preventing that? That's another advocacy for the citywide $2 rate. So.
Yeah, so to answer that question, we can enforce that. When that was brought to my attention, I added another layer of functionality to the enforcement machines. So we know at which meter every license plate has paid. Of course, one uniform rate eliminates, that possibility, and it does make enforcement a little bit more streamlined.
Thank you.
All right, Alderman Howell, would you please restate?
All right, well, my motion was in the format of an amendment to the motion that was on the floor that said 3 and 1. I'm saying that we do $2 across the board, that we give 5 parking spots to the library at 30-minute intervals, and that we allow 3 hours free parking for residents.
And John, you
Yep,
did that, correct?
I do.
All right, let's take a roll call vote on that.
Headland,
Yes.
Halverson,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes?
Bessemeyer,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Howell,
Yes.
Straube,
Yes.
Dunker.
Yes.
It's unanimous.